All right. So I've asked myself this question, and I've been asked this question a million times. How much should I charge for my service? That's not the right question. You're not asking the right question. The right question is, how much do you feel you are worth for your service? So if you've ever calculated your cost per wear in your clothing, and which cost per wear is literally what it sounds like, is if this item of clothing costs $100 and then you think about how many times you've worn it, does it end up equaling out to the amount that you expected? Is it worth the money? And I do that before I buy anything. I think about how many times I'm going to wear something before I buy it, because essentially I want to make sure that no matter how much I'm spending, whether it's $5 or whether it is $200, how much it will be worth in the end. Is it going to fall apart tomorrow and then I've just wasted $5? Or is that $100 item going to last me 5 years? You know, the difference. So it is the same thing as when you're thinking about your services. So if somebody is willing to pay a lot of money to get an item done, like for example, I had a client pay me $300 to edit a 2-minute video of his son releasing a balloon into the atmosphere. It was so simple, but it was the memory that he was paying for. He really wanted something that he could win in a contest, his son could win in a contest, and things like that. And so I put a lot of effort into it. And I actually worked on that for maybe 2 weeks. I wanted him to give me notes, and I wanted him to kind of like refine it any way he wanted. And that to me was worth that. You have to ask yourself these questions. You have to ask yourself, am I going to have to spend money on this project? And if I do, are they willing to pay me back for it? So you keep the receipts and you talk to them ahead of time. Don't talk to them prior. Don't say, yes, I'll do it, and then realize, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be spending $100 out of my own pocket. Because can you afford that? If you're doing freelancing, it might actually hinder your progress a little bit, because it'll prevent you from wanting to do further jobs. You'll really stop yourself. At least I did, and it was a learning lesson. Think about the work you've done in the past. Have you done anything similar? How much were they willing to pay? For example, I worked with Fordham University for one of their professor interviews in 2018, and they paid me a great deal of money for things that I learned so much. I couldn't even believe it. I wasn't even confident in what I could do, but they believed in me, and it turned out great. And I was the editor and the director for that, and the videographer for that. And it was a learning experience, and now I know how to do interviews. Are you willing to lower your prices for something that you're passionate about? If you're really passionate about something, just go ahead and do it. You don't have to think about the money. You think about how much you would gain from this project and how much they would gain from this project, because essentially you would be lending your services in a helping hand, and you would be helping someone grow farther than they could ever even imagine, and you have no idea how much that could mean to someone. As somebody who has filmed for free on multiple occasions where I have lent months of my services to somebody and I didn't get paid a dime, but I was so passionate about it that I felt I was on top of the world. I felt that, that we were helping each other in that sense, and we were helping each other sort of grow in these massive numbers, because both of us, it became both of our passion project. The thing that I believe is if you think about how many hours it takes you to edit or to film or etc., whatever it is you're doing, this applies, right? Think about how many hours it would take you to do your own project. So if you are a filmmaker or you're a writer, for example, or a singer or anything, think about how many hours has it taken you to create your own. Calculate that in your own head, and then think about if someone else asked me to do a similar project, how much would I feel that time was worth? Let's say you are going to be doing hourly, right? For a videographer or photographer, that might be the case because you will be in front of your client. And while you can also do an entire package and a set price, sometimes hourly might be your best bet depending on what it is. So if you're shooting a family, for example, or you are just shooting some headshots for a client, you're going to have a clock in front of you at all times. I highly suggest keeping a watch or even an alarm, like a subtle alarm. Don't don't make that an obnoxious thing, but keep your eye on the time, because it is your responsibility to let your client know when that time is almost up, because it is their choice if they want to continue for another hour. You never want to be that kind of person who just lets the clock run. All of a sudden it's been 3 hours and now they're out $300. They didn't expect it. They didn't expect that time would go so quickly, or whatever it may be. But the thing is that it will just make it seem a lot more unprofessional in that way, almost like you're taking advantage. So even if you are not, and even if you honestly you were just checking, like, oh, look at that, it's been an hour and a half, it is your duty to let your client know. If you are doing hourly and it does end up being a 3-hour job, think about if you've been charging $25 an hour, because that's only $75. And while working from a minimum wage job, that is a huge skyrocket for one day. For just 3 hours, you get $75. It is not nearly as much in the long run. I learned this the hard way. I used to charge $25 an hour for an hour-long video shoot. I didn't really think about that at all, because the thing is that while minimum wage is significantly lower, at the end of the day, what are you going home with? And are you going to be able to live off of that? If you calculate $25 an hour, let's say you did 3 hours a day, and let's say you did want to work 5 days a week, that's only $1,500 a month. And sounds like a lot, but you still have your own dues to pay. So when tax season comes around, all of that chunk of money needs to go to taxes. And these are things that you really need to start thinking about before you start your own business here. You have to think about your long haul, how much you will make in the long run. Start low. Start with maybe start with $50. Maybe start with $75. To build your portfolio, do them for free for a few friends here and there. Ask for their help and ask to ask for their time and say, hey, do you mind meeting with me for just a couple of hours so I can get a couple of shots for you? I'll edit them and I'll do all the work and everything, and then you get these shots for free. I highly believe that your friends will love to do that, because essentially most people think it's a lot of fun. And hey, everyone is okay with free photography or free videos. You should build the portfolio, get comfortable with what you think that time is worth. Then you can set your budget. When you have begun, think about editing time as well. This was a tip I learned because $25 an hour does not include editing time. And so I learned to include editing time in the price. I have been very solid on that because it changes the game for me. It makes me think, yes, okay, my time is absolutely worth this. It was not something that I ended up just feeling like, oh man, I should have asked for more. Because you don't really want to be in that position either. You don't want to be thinking, I should have asked for more because I feel like this isn't worth my time. It's an awkward conversation that you end up having to have later of asking for more money from your client because you miscalculated your worth at the very beginning. Sometimes that's the way it is. Sometimes you honestly, you've just grown throughout that time. For long-time clients, especially if you've been working for a client for at least a year, that entire year is going to change for you. You're going to start at the bottom and then you're going to have a year's worth of experience at that point. It changes completely. You know, I used to be horrible at photography. I couldn't even think about cinematography. I didn't even know how to make a film. I didn't even know how to write or how to speak or anything like that. I remember the first thing I ever recorded was professionally was in high school. I was the yearbook editor, and I went to the photography studio that I later ended up working at, and I filmed interviews, quote unquote. These interviews, really, I mean, you couldn't even see them. I held the camera lower than the actual subject's face, and it was so shaky and everything because I was talking to them. I didn't really think, let me set this on a tripod and talk. I was following everyone with a giant camera. Like, it was unbelievably horrible. My teacher actually really laughed at me, and then yeah, he didn't use the footage, which is horrible because he was really relying on me, and we were really relying on that footage for the yearbook and for yearbook pictures and everything. But didn't happen, and that is a learning lesson. Nothing we do is going to be essentially easy. It can be simple, but it will still take up time, and that time can be done doing something else. So how much you should charge really is up to you. Think about your client, think about what they might be going through. Don't feel any sort of resentment toward anybody because they're not willing to pay for more, because if you think about it, if it was in the reverse, and you didn't want to pay for more, you wouldn't want to feel bad about that either. No one's going to be 100% honest all the time. You just need to keep growing and making sure that you are continuously growing. So if it isn't the one medium that you hoped for, it doesn't mean that it won't be. It means that maybe you need to start a little smaller. So if you want to be a filmmaker, try photography. Take a few photos, and maybe what you could do is take cinematic photos, as I really wanted to at the time. I didn't really allow myself to do that because I was not really battling, I was just kind of in my own head about which direction I really wanted to go. I didn't know if I wanted to do modeling photography and like fashion photography, if I wanted to do travel or cinematic or what, but start small and grow from there and see what happens. That's it, and thanks for sitting with me today, and I will see you guys in my next video. Like and subscribe if you liked it, and see you next time.